Hello friends, and welcome to today's episode. A girl found out that a couple wanted to take her younger brother in as their own. She asked the adopted mother a question that made her think about it for months. She was afraid that they would be parted for good. Even though not all callings are the same, many people think that family is the most important thing in life. Some people have it easy and get pregnant right away, while others have trouble getting pregnant and have to try a lot of different things to get pregnant. No matter what, the goal is always to have a child or children to enjoy life to the fullest. This has always been the dream of a couple in Buenos Aires, Argentina. After 5 hard and heartbreaking tries to have children of their own, Fabiana Perez and Norberto Vega chose to start a family in a different way. They had turbo miscarriages, a condition called thrombophilia, and several rounds of very complicated treatments that didn't work. The couple was heartbroken and sad when they found out that nothing they did to try to have a child worked. At first, they didn't want to adopt because they wanted their children to be born into their family, just like their relatives. Perez said, "I never thought I could be adopted. I was excited about being pregnant. I went to see my sisters. They were both younger than me and had twins, which was something I wanted to do." When you think about it, a lot of what we do in our lives is based on what we wanted to do, not what we have to do. But it wasn't easy for them to decide, because they were afraid that if they adopted a kid, someone would take that child away one day. Even though they had a lot of doubts, the couple chose to sign up to adopt. They wanted to adopt a child who was no more than 3 years old, like many other candidates. They did this because they thought it would be easy to raise a child whose identity hadn't yet formed. The application from Perez and Vega was received, but they were told not to wait and to look for their children by going to several places. At the time, the couple had friends in Misiones who asked them to come see the area, where there were many homes with children waiting for parents. So, in 2012, they didn't go to the beach or the falls. Instead, they went to Misiones to look for their child. If you're like most people, you probably don't want to spend a lot of time thinking about what you're going to eat. You just wanted to eat. When they walked into a house, a young boy named Ezequiel met them right away. When he came up to Perez and Vega, he was eating a lollipop and wearing a diaper. Before he knew who they were, the little boy gave them the biggest hugs and kisses. They both knew when they looked at each other. "It's him," they said together. The next day, the couple didn't waste any time and got in touch with a lawyer. They filled out the forms to adopt the boy, but it was months before they heard back from the court. Perez's fears about being adopted began to come back. She was afraid that it was taking so long because other people were also trying to adopt Ezequiel. But they found out later that the reason they hadn't adopted Ezequiel yet was because they were waiting for parents who would take both him and his 5-year-old sister. Perez and Vega understood that if they wanted to adopt Ezequiel, they would also have to adopt his sister Betty Anna. But it wasn't an easy choice because Betty Anna's face was badly burned in a fire and she needed to see a doctor. The couple was told that Betty Anna didn't go to school because she didn't want to be picked on because of how she looked. This made them even more worried that if she wasn't being picked on in a small town, she might be picked on more in Buenos Aires. But even though they were worried, something happened that made it easier for them to choose. When Betty Anna sat on Perez's lap, they were at Ezequiel's house to see him. As Perez rocked the baby, the little girl asked her, "Don't you want to adopt me? Don't you also want to be my mom?" That was all Perez needed to hear, and she decided to take both kids in. But it wasn't easy to get there. The court did not want it to let the adoption go through. It's hard to believe that it's already been a year since the last time I blogged. At the time, the people who were in the home were already letting the couple take them to the park or the street. But Perez and Vega agreed to take them to court that day. The woman asked the judge, "What else do you need to see?" Betty Anna's health was getting worse at the time. She could only breathe through her mouth, she was always drooling, and her teeth were getting worse. The judge told them something strange, which surprised them. "Well, take them if you already took them out." But Perez wouldn't accept this answer. She wanted to be their mother, not steal them, so she pushed to adopt them officially. Perez stayed with the kids for months while the court handled the adoption papers. She left her business with her mother and went to work in her hometown of Buenos Aires. When October came and the judge still hadn't made a decision, she begged them to sign the papers. Her sisters even made a petition, which was signed by more than 12,000 people. Because of the plea, the Supreme Court finally heard their case and gave them permission to adopt. Betty Anna finally got the care she needed after 2 months. She began going to school as well. The young girl fit in well with her classmates, and at one point she was even picked as the best student. Betty Anna's parents took her to a doctor because they didn't want any bad things to happen to her as she grew up. But after a few meetings, the doctor said she was fine and didn't need help anymore. Thanks to the love she was getting, she was already starting to get over what had happened. Even though they still have a long way to go and many more problems to solve as a family, they are still hopeful as long as they are all together. That's it for today, friends. Please let us know what you think about this story. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon for more amazing stories.